In this lesson, we're going to get started with our Real World Vue 3 app. We're going to create the project with the Vue CLI, then we're going to look at the Vue UI, which we could use to create the project, but also to manage it in an intuitive way. Then we'll end by touring the project that the Vue CLI created for us. Let's get started. As you may already know, CLI stands for Command Line Interface, and the Vue CLI is a full system for rapid Vue.js development. It does a lot of tedious work for us and provides features out of the box. It allows us to select the libraries our project will be using and automatically plugs them into the project. The CLI configures Webpack for us so that JavaScript files, CSS, and dependencies get properly bundled together and optimized upon deployment. It also allows us to write our HTML, CSS, and JavaScript however we like. It gives us the freedom to use single-file.vue components, TypeScript, SCSS, Pug, the latest versions of ECMAScript, and more. The CLI also enables HMR, or Hot Module Replacement, so your app updates live whenever you save a change. In order to use the Vue CLI, you're going to have it installed on your computer. You can install it by running this script here in the terminal. Once you have it installed, that gives you access to the Vue binary, so you can run commands like Vue create, and then the name of the project that you're creating, in our case, Real World Vue. This will start guiding us through a process where we select the options to configure our project. Here, it's asking us to pick a preset. Although we do want to use Vue 3, we're going to select that later as we manually select features. The features we're going to select are Router, and we'll also select Vuex. Now here is where we choose the version of Vue.js that we want to use. We'll choose Vue 3. And we'll say yes to using history mode for Vue Router. In terms of the linter and formatter, you can choose whatever you want here. For now, I'll just choose ESLint plus prettier, and I want it to lint on save. This next selection is entirely up to you. Do you want your configuration files to be in the package.json or dedicated files? I'll choose dedicated files. Now, as you can see, our project is being created. And when it's done, it gives us these two commands to run. We'll cd into the project, and then type npm run serve. This compiles our app, and as you can see, it's running at localhost 8080. If you already have a local host running, your number might be a bit different. Now, if we head to that local host in the browser, we can see the app that was just created. It's letting us know which plugins it installed, such as Router and Vuex. And at the top here, you can see that some basic routing is already set up for us, where we can navigate between the home and about views. A unique and helpful tool within the Vue ecosystem is the Vue UI. This allows us to do things like create the project like we just did from the terminal, but also manage our project in a really intuitive way. We can spin up this UI by typing Vue UI. And as you can see, it's ready at localhost 8000. And it looks like this. If we wanted to create a new project, just like we did in the terminal, we could click on the Create tab, choose where on our computer we want to create the project, give it a name, select a package manager, such as Yarn or NPM. By default, it'll initialize a Git repo for us. And as you can see, it's walking us through the exact steps we took in the terminal. Remember, we manually selected features. We chose to add Vue Router and Vuex. Just like before, we'll choose Vue 3, ESLint plus prettier, or whatever configuration you prefer. We can pick our additional linting features and create our project. Once our project is created, we'll have this dashboard, which we could customize if we wanted to, monitoring for plugin or dependency updates, checking for known vulnerabilities, and so on. On the left here, we have different tabs, including one to manage our plugins. We could add a plugin. For example, I'm going to search for Vuetify. I could learn more information about this. then install it into our project. But we won't actually add Vuetify. If you're interested in learning about that component design framework, we have an entire course devoted to the topic. There's also a dependencies tab where we can see all the dependencies that our project is using. And we can also install a new dependency. For example, if we wanted to add Lodash, we could do so from here. There's also a tab that allows us to configure the project globally and do things like configure ESLint. For example, we might want to add specific rules. We can also run tasks on our project from the UI, such as serving the project. And when we run the task here, it gives us useful information, such as speed stats and visual insight into our assets and dependencies. The Output tab shows what you would normally see in the terminal, and the Analyzer tab gives us even more information about our project. If we click on this Home button on the bottom left, we'll see this project that we just created from the UI. And if we wanted to bring in a project that we created outside of this UI, we could do so from this Import tab. Now that we've explored different ways to create and manage our projects, let's open up the project and see what was created for us. Starting at the top here, we have this Node Modules directory. This includes the dependencies needed to build our project. Then we've got the public directory, which you could use for files that you don't want processed through Webpack. Then we've got the src directory. This includes all of our application code, such as our assets where we might store things like images, fonts, etc. And a folder for our components, which are the building blocks of the app. We've also got a folder for Vue Router, which is used for app navigation, and then a folder for our Vuex store, which is used for state management in a Vue app. I should note here that by the end of the course, you'll have an understanding of what Vuex is for, but we're not actually going to cover the topic in depth. That's in a later course that this course prepares you for. The Views directory stores the components for our different views or pages of the app. And app.vue is the root component of our app. All other components are nested within this. And finally, main.js renders our app and mounts it to the DOM. Additionally, we have a file to tell Git what to ignore from our project. We've got a Babel config file, our package.json files, and a README. Now, before we wrap up this lesson, let's understand what's happening in main.js. At the top here, we're importing createApp, which is a method from Vue, and we're also importing app.vue. Remember, this is the root component in which all other components are nested, so all of our application code is in this component. So here we're creating our app, telling it to use Vue Router and the Vuex store, and then we're mounting it. So where are we mounting it exactly? In the argument, we're specifying where we want the app to be mounted. Notice how we've passed in the ID of app. Inside the public directory, notice how we have this index.html file. And at the bottom here, we've got this div with the ID of app, including this helpful comment: built files will be auto-injected. In other words, when our project is built, this is where our application code is going to go. Let's look at this process visually. Remember how we've got our app.vue file. This is our root component in which all of our application code is nested. And our main.js takes all of that application code and creates our app, mounting it to the DOM, specifically where that div with the ID of app lives within our index.html. And with that, we now have a basic understanding of how our project is working, and we're ready to start customizing it. In the next lesson, we'll build our first component. See you there.